with the NCAA bringing the Final Four back to Houston in 2023, just thoughts about that, having it here in your backyard, and how cool is that and the fact that UH is joined Texas Southern, HBU, and Rice in hosting as well.
So what's the question?
How cool is it to have the Final Four back in Houston?
It's great it's great. You know, I'm sure there's so much hard work on the outside, different committees. I mean, it's a lot of painstaking work. I admire the city for putting its best foot forward for the city. So I think it's awesome for our city.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else have a question? Please raise your hand, and we'll get to you as quickly as we possibly can. We'll go to James Mueller with the Cougar. James, go ahead, please, sir.
Yeah, Kelvin, you talked about this a little after the game Tuesday night, but just how important is, being able to be home for about 2 straight weeks, just in terms of getting all these practices in, not having to deal with travel stuff after, coming off a week where y'all were playing back to back to back?
Well, everybody has this kind of stretch. Most teams start the season with it, where you play 4 or 5 straight home games. Get your kinks worked out and get your new guys, get them synchronized with your returning players, getting everybody to buy into your system. We had a couple of home games, and then we went on the road for 3, and then now we're coming home for 3. So it's good, but it's a season is just full of peaks and valleys for every single team. Maybe not for Gonzaga last year, but most mortal teams, you're gonna have peaks, you're gonna have valleys, and you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old, some kids, some young men, and just kind of ride it out. Just try to control the things you can control as far as the coaching staff's concerned. You lean a lot on your returning players for leadership. But the big thing is making sure that these kids understand how we want to play, but more importantly, how we want to win. It's hard to win a game, and every game is like Christmas presents under the Christmas tree. Every present is a surprise in itself. But you have to prepare your kids every day in practice to play the next game. I've said this many times over the years, and I do think it's true. How you prepare when nobody's looking prepares you for when everybody is looking. So we have a defensive system that we hold our kids accountable to. We have a way we like to play offense that we hold them accountable to. But the most important thing is effort. Rebounding is effort. Playing defense is effort. If it was easy, everybody would be a great rebounding team, or everybody would be a great defensive team. Those things aren't easy to do. You have to work at them. And just because you work at them, you're not guaranteed to succeed. But I do know this: if you don't work at it, you're guaranteed not to succeed.
Thank you. We'll go to Dayon Dunlap, please. Dayon, please go ahead.
Hey, Coach Sampson. Just kind of piggyback on what you just said, and correct me if I'm wrong. I know you guys have an identity defensively, like you said, but I feel like offensively, like you said, you kind of, way the year goes on, you kind of move pieces based on the game per game. But what would you gauge you guys are this year offensively with some of the new pieces in and kind of making it all work how you want?
How would I gauge it?
Yes, sir.
Just a work in progress.
Okay.
Every team is different. Your team's relative to your strength of your players. We don't play. No one team is alike. When we had Rob Gray and Devin Davis and I think it was Corey's first year with Armani and Galen, Bryant Brady, that bunch. That team's strength was completely different than the following year when we had Armani Brooks and Corey Galen. I think Fabian was a sophomore that year. That team strength was completely different than the year before because of Rob's impact. Then we lost all those kids, and then the next year you have Caleb Mills as a freshman. Quentin, he's a first-year player. Quentin's a first-year player. Dejan was a different role. Then last year's team, was what the strengths of last year's teams was, and so now you have a new, different team. The thing about losing basically 4 starters every year is you're starting over with your offensive philosophy and your defensive philosophy, because it's not new to me, it's new to them. I don't predetermine how we're going to play offensively. I do predetermine the standards that we hold as far as offensive rebounding and our defensive principles. Those things aren't going to change. But offensively, I'll play according to the strengths of the team. This team has we're probably better up front as far as scoring the ball because of Fabian and Josh. But Reggie and Jaywan have their strengths too. I like to play the kids' strengths and kind of hide their weaknesses because they all have them.
Thank you, Dan. We'll go ahead and go to Matt Peterson with ESPN. Matt, go ahead with your question for Coach, please.
Hey, Kelvin, nice to speak with you again.
Hey, Matt.
Taze Moore, coming from Cal State Bakersfield. I know that when he signed, you mentioned the quality program there with Rod Barnes and 11 seasons. Can you give us a little more detail on how you discovered him and the process of getting him to Houston?
Well, I think every coach can take his index finger and his middle fingers and put it on his team and kind of take the pulse of what you think your team's strengths and are, and maybe where your weaknesses are heading into a season. What you guys do is react to what I've done or what our staff has done. But we're feverishly working all the time on how we make our team better. For instance, we had a recruiting meeting this morning and we talked solely about 2022, 23, and 23, 24, projecting out and what those teams may or may not look like. It's hard to project going forward today because of, kids going out early, the impact of the two-way contract as far as giving the kids a chance to get on an NBA track early, and also the transfer portal. You just can't plan ahead like you used to. But we knew we were going to lose Quentin. I knew we were going to lose Quentin halfway through the year. There was never a question. It was just a matter of how good could he finish and could he get in the first round. Worst case scenario for Quentin, he was going to be a early mid-second round pick, but he just kept getting better and better in our system, and he wound up being the 25th pick in the draft. So we knew we didn't start trying to replace Quentin in April. We kind of we're constantly working on who may pop in, who may not. And, Taje's name came up. Taze is a little bit naive. I remember the first time I called him and talked to him, he kept saying, "Is this really you? Is this? I just saw you at the Final Four." I said, "Yeah, well, usually when the Final Four is over, you come home, Taze. You don't stay there forever. We have to check out of our rooms and then we come back home. So I'm I think it was a phone call. I don't think it was a Zoom call. I can't remember. You'd ask Taze about that. But I spent 5 minutes trying to convince the kid that I am who I said I am. But like I said, he's a little bit naive. But that's also part of why I like him. You know, I like the naivety about him. He doesn't have an ego. He came from, I think, an outstanding coach in Rod Barnes. Rod's a Mississippi guy. I coached when I was at Oklahoma. I actually coached against Rod when he was the head coach at University of Mississippi. The athletic director at University of Mississippi now, Keith Carter, was an outstanding player for Rod at Ole Miss. So, you know, we just did our due diligence, did our background check. You know, it's not an easy call to call a coach about a kid that's leaving. You know, I'm real sensitive to that. You know, it's not easy for someone to call me, for instance, you know, Leonard Hamilton called me about Caleb. You know, that's not an easy conversation because, you know, we recruited the kid, we invested, you know, and then when a kid decides to leave, you know, it's hard to be upbeat and positive and be excited for him. That's just human nature, I think. But I asked Rod the hard questions, and to Rod's credit, and I tried to be the same thing for Leonard. Calling Rod actually helped me with Leonard. But calling Rod and the answers he gave me, realized that, you know, Taze was worth taking the chance on. You know, we knew we were getting a kid that's probably a better athlete than he is a player. What we've tried to do is try to marry the two, teach him how to use his athleticism to impact winning. You know, people that don't know a whole lot about basketball get excited about dunks. You know, that's usually guys that's never dunked before. You know, but Taje's become a better defender. He's right now at this stage of his career, he's a better individual defender than he is a team defender. You know, he's only had one really bad game, and that was against Wisconsin. You know, and you know, he approached that game almost like he was in over his head, and I couldn't get him out of there fast enough. And once we got him out of there and we got in the second half, you saw how we played with him on the bench. And then you saw him the other night against Northwestern State. So, you know, I don't overreact when they play poorly, and I certainly don't overreact when they play good. You know, there's a journey that all these kids go along to get to where they can impact winning in different ways. You know, we've been on Taze about being a better offensive rebounder. You know, catching a lob dunk is 2 points at the end of the day. There's no difference in that and the tip. But it certainly gets people excited. I doubt if he was not such a great athlete, I doubt you'd ask me the question. But we want Taze to be more of a singles guy. He had one of the damnedest turnovers I've ever seen in my life the other night. He actually had a 360 and threw a knuckle curve to Tremont on the wing. It wasn't a bad pass, but I don't think Tremont's ever seen a guy jump up, do a 360, and throw a ball that was diving at his kneecap on the wing. But that play, those plays are Taze in a nutshell. You know, oohs and ahs. You know, he can make a lot of ooh, and then he can make a ah. That's kind of where his game is right now. We've got to get less oohs and less ahs and more solid.
Thank you. As a reminder, everybody, if you're moving around or whatever, please make sure you mute yourself. It sounds like we have some noise in the background. I'd like to try to avoid that as much as possible, please. We'll go to Adam Winkler with KTRK with a question for Coach. Adam, go ahead, please.
Kelvin, Dana's been so complimentary of you and your program and how you guys have helped elevate U of H's brand. I want to ask you about the football team playing for the conference championship Saturday, and you guys playing Friday, Monday. Do you have any plans to carve out some time to watch the game?
Absolutely. I can't wait. It's at 3 o'clock Saturday, our time, right? 3 o'clock our time. Yeah, there's no doubt. I'll be tuned in. I wish I could be at the game, but we play Monday. So we'll be practicing. Matter of fact, I'll set our practice schedule Saturday around the game time. I don't want to miss the game. It's great. You know, I saw what he, you know, when I got to Oklahoma, Bob Stoops was the fourth coach that I saw. I had 3 in 3 years. First year, I think Gary Gibbs. Second year was Howard Schnellenberger. Third year was John Blake. I think John was there for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And then I remember going to dinner with Bob Stoops and his wife Karen and I, and Joe Castiglione. The 6 of us went to dinner the day before he was introduced as the head coach at Oklahoma. And the thing I loved about Bob is very similar to things I love about Dana. Bob is a program first, player first coach. Dana wants to win for Houston. He wants to win for his student athletes. He values his coaching staff. It's not about Dana. It wasn't about Bob. You know, those guys are very humble. They both have great servant leadership, is which we all should do. You know, the program comes first. You know, it's not, if something were to happen to us as head coaches, they're going to get another coach and the season will go on. But Dana had a plan, and I admire him so much for staying with his plan. You know, the COVID year, he knew exactly what he was doing. I still don't understand why administrators were firing coaches during COVID. That's almost unfair to me. But Dana stuck with it. When people were running around, you know, chasing the sky that was falling, Dana just stayed in his bunker. He got with his coaches, he got with his players, and they just got better and better and better and better. And when you look up, you know, it's 11-1, and they're playing for conference championship game. They're ranked in the top 20 in the nation. You know, what a great accomplishment for him and those kids and his staff. I can't tell you how proud I am of the football program and how elated I am for those coaches and their families and those kids and their families.
Thank you, Adam. We'll go back to James Mueller with Cougar. James, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Kelvin, I know how you talk about, you know, when freshmen come in, they're not guaranteed anything. There's a lot of growth that has to happen. But how important are, you know, these past few games where you're able to get guys like Robbie and JVR minutes just to get them some experience and a taste of what, you know, is to come in future years?
Well, they remind me a lot of where Kieran was this time last year. Jaywan was when he was a freshman. You know, if you haven't, when Galen Robinson was a freshman, we didn't have any choice. We had to play him. Now, if you look at Galen's first year versus his third and fourth year, you can see how much better he got. And so will these guys. You know, people that don't know anything put peers at the end of kids the first time they see him play. Well, he's no good. He can't do this. He can't do that. You're right. You're right. That in those 2 minutes you saw him play, he couldn't do that. But we recruit these kids for a reason. JVR is getting better in practice every day. So is Robbie. So is Kieran. Now, all 3 of them are a long way away from impacting winning at the level our program is right now. You know, if they had been here in 2014, 2015, all 3 of them would probably be starting. That shows you where the program was back then. We're not the same program we were in 14, 15, or 15, 16. You know, I mean, we're pretty good. We're not great, but we're pretty good. And so, you know, when they're not playing on and I explained this to them, so the fact that you're not playing on this team, there's a lot of colleges you guys could be playing at, but those programs aren't at the level this program's at. just keep working. Choose who you want to listen to. And they're great kids. You know, I really, really like JVR's progress. I like Robbie's progress. The guy that was probably playing the best of all the freshmen when he went down was Ramon Walker. You know, when he had the surgery. There was two guys having their best day today got hurt. It was Kyler Edwards and Ramon, and they were going at each other's necks that day. I mean, I just kind of stuck my whistle in my mouth and folded my arms and just watched them. And I think there was a loose ball, and they both were flying out of bounds after it. And one got up and one didn't. And when I went over there a little bit later, Ramon's hands was actually just shaking really bad, and I knew something was wrong. So felt bad for him, but we have great medical care here led by our great trainer, John Houston, and he'll be back stronger than ever. Emanuel Sharp will be here in December, and he'll start practicing with us 1st of January. And when we get Emanuel Sharp and Ramon Walker in practice every day, that's only going to help our team get better, because now we have two more good guards to go against every day.
We got time for one or two more questions. We'll go back to Matt Peterson with ESPN for one of them. Matt, go ahead, please, sir.
Hey, Kelvin, can you give us just a scouting report on Bryant and what you've seen, what you expect from them tomorrow?
Sure. You know, they're unlike any team that we've seen in that, you know, most teams when they run, for instance, after made baskets, it's not unusual to see a team that runs hard after makes. But what is unusual is when they don't utilize a rim runner, someone to run the middle of the floor all the way either to the rim or the baseline to flatten your defense out. What they do is run two guys up each sideline. And, you know, we've watched, we didn't spend any time watching Northwestern State. We graded it and we passed out our grades yesterday, but we just went right into Bryant, and I'm glad I did. The more I watch them, the more you realize that every team has something unique that you know is unique to their team. For instance, Northwestern State tried to play high-low with us with their big guys, and so here's our plan. Here's how we're going to take that away. And we did a good job executing the game plan against them. And this team is different in that 60% of the shots they'll shoot Friday night will be threes, and they have high-level shooters. They've got guys that their strength as a player is shooting threes. Their best player is a kid by the name of Peter Kiss, who's he's in this. You know, when a kid's a senior, you know, you always assume it's his fourth year unless he redshirted. But now because of COVID, senior may be his fifth year. But they start two kids that are in their fifth or sixth year, and they start three other kids that's either in their fourth or fifth year. So it's an old team, which means they're not going to get rattled on the road. They had a great win the other night over Brown University. So, well, what's so significant about that? When North Carolina beat Brown, I think it was 94-87. So Brown hung 87 obviously at North Carolina. And then Bryant turned around and beat them. So they've got some impressive wins. They also have some impressive losses. They score. I mean, they really score. And then they set their defense up by just mixing it up. You know, we ran our zone offense, I think, for the first time all year against Northwestern State. That's the first time we've seen a zone. We don't zone, so we don't work much against zone. And watching us try to run a zone offense or a zone defense can be somewhat comical. But they'll run a tight 1-3-1, an extended 1-3-1, a tight 3-2, a 2-3. They'll start man-to-man, pop into a zone. So they're constantly mixing their defenses up. And and then they run for threes. They don't run for layups. They run for threes. So automatically you're saying, okay, we've got to have a plan against their multiple looks versus their defense. And then when we're on defense, we've got to match up with their shooters. And usually when the team shoots a lot of threes, they depend on beating you at the point of attack with penetration. They want to get in the paint, draw the defense, and kick it for a three. So one-on-one defense, guard your yard, man. Guard your man. If you're getting blown by, it's going to lead to a three-point shot. So Peter Kiss, 6'5", very confident young man. Another 6'4" guard, Pride, 6'5", Elida. Then they've got a 6'8", 230-pound kid, Elijah, who is averaging 4 blocks a game. Big, strong kid inside, very athletic. They know who they are, very well coached. This will be a really good challenge for us.